Heed all who enter, and beware this live edition of the Paid Podcast here on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Nick Springer, and of course, I'm here with Kevin Flaherty, and we're brought to you by Emprise Bank. We're going to be talking all things KU and Wagner coming up from the David Booth Kansas Royal Stadium live right now. This is the Paid Podcast, a live edition of the show from David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium, minutes after the conclusion of Kansas defeating Wagner here at David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium. Shout out to all of you that are joining us live tonight. You're some real sickos, you know that? Because this was one of the games of all time, Kevin. One of the games of all time as Kansas beats up on Wagner 46-7. We're going to break it all down. Of course, this also sets up Kansas now for that big matchup against Missouri coming up. But first of all, Kevin, kind of a weird game, really, especially in the second half. But in the first half, Kansas looked pretty dominant. There was some smooth sailing. And then all of a sudden, you have an interception late in the half, and Wagner ends up scoring a touchdown. And you're like, okay. And then second half comes along, and honestly, with about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, it really felt like both teams were like, please just end the game. It's kind of the vibe that I was getting. But overall, what were your takeaways from Kansas beating Wagner?
Yeah, we talked on our show this week about how Kansas probably wasn't going to cover, right? How Lance Leipold, a lot of times when he gets up on somebody, kind of tends to stretch that clock out a little bit. But, Nick, they had every chance to kind of cover in this one. They had 3 red zone trips in a row where they got 3 points out of it instead of 21. You had the interception by Jalen. It was a slot fade route, basically, where you had the outside receiver sit down and then kind of ran the fade behind him. The outside corner did a really nice job of recognition, saw the route, jumped it, and wound up getting a pick there. But then you wind up having 2 more drives in the red zone result in one, a field goal, and then you get stopped, right at the goal line. And so this is very easily a situation where you could have had another 21 or so points. And then you look at the lone touchdown. I think Wagner finished with 90 passing yards. 45 of it came on that one play. So half of it. It was one of those situations that, looking in my mentions, there were some people who were really upset about it. You had some injuries / attrition at linebacker with the John Kamara targeting call. Obviously, Bengali Kamara not playing, Joseph Sipp not playing. And so you had a situation out there where you had a couple defenders where I don't know how often they've really communicated, kind of those sorts of routes with each other. And it wound up hitting it big. Basically, 2 guys followed one guy, and the other guy wound up scoring a touchdown. But one of those things, like to your point, just a couple mistakes here and there are the only thing keeping you from thinking, man, this was a great performance. And instead, you come out of it kind of like, it was one of the performances, as you said. By the way, Dave, we are not actually in a stairwell. This is one of the boxes in the new booth.
Well, we're actually in the visiting radio booth. We kind of got it angled a little bit so you can see kind of the upper level behind us, but we're actually in the visiting radio booth hanging out doing the show. So,
for sure. There's another level like right above us that you can't quite see where there would be some people up here, but they'd be calling the game from sort of right where we're sitting. Yeah,
so thank you, Dave, for joining the chat. Thank you to Gabe as well. But I think you make a great point, Kevin. People will look at Wagner and say, well, they scored. Like, how did they score? It's ridiculous. But on the flip side, Wagner had 140 total yards of offense and went 3 and out on like 8 of their 13 drives.
And KU had 631 yards of total offense, averaged over 8 yards a play. And so it really was kind of one of those things where you were a couple plays away from being like, man, this is about as sharp a performance as you could have hoped for. Yeah. But because of this or that, and it wound up not quite being there. Also, feel so badly for my guy Justin Thurman. Breaks the 58-yard run right there at the very end. Quentin Conley gets hit with a holding call. I believe he was away from the play as well, and so that kind of stings, having an almost 60-yard run taken off your tally like that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the final stats from Jalen Daniels: 18-25, 280 yards, 4 touchdowns. Obviously, had the deep bomb to Emmanuel Henderson.
Yep.
Did have the one interception that you mentioned in the end zone, where it was honestly just one of those plays where he put too much air under it.
Yeah,
right? It was actually if you watch it, the guy that makes the pick is actually covering the flat route.
Yep.
And he's able to have enough time to recognize the play and peel off because Jalen put too much air under it. So that's one where I think you'll be able to go back in the film and say, okay, I see exactly what went wrong with that particular play. But yeah, Jalen Daniels on that I thought was pretty much phenomenal. I mean, this was a game where Emmanuel Henderson obviously was on full display with some of the deep routes that he was running. Now, I mean, listen, I got to commend the Wagner secondary for doing their darndest to try to keep up with him. But his speed was on full display.
He got flat tackled, and got another PI, obviously.
There was another one where their feet got tangled up that maybe could have been a PI.
The thing that I'm interested in is, they pretty much the deep shots that they've thrown to him, with the exception of the post route that they threw kind of early on to him, have been pretty much all just straight vertical shots.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested to see. Obviously, you don't want to show a ton in this game. Don't want to show a ton against Fresno State if you don't have to. I'm interested to see as Kansas gets into its schedule a little more, if you start seeing more of those deep shots sort of over the middle of the field on post routes and things like that, where you're giving Jalen a bigger window to kind of throw that ball into a little bit.
Well, one thing we did see a lot more of tonight that we saw against Fresno State was tempo offense.
Yes.
That clearly is something that was an emphasis for Jim Zabrowski taking over as the offensive coordinator. It was saying, hey, if we're rolling, let's keep it rolling, right?
Yes.
And that when you think of sort of, I guess, the classic, up-tempo offenses of, the 2010s, I guess, because I don't think up-tempo is as popular now as it used to be. When you think about the Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma offenses or Texas Tech, right, it's predicated on boom, 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 right? You get a positive play, and you just go. And obviously tonight, KU was able to do that against an inferior defense in Wagner, where they were able to, break off 10 yards, get the line quickly, break off another 10 yards, get the line quickly, another 8 yards, 7 yards, whatever it may have been. But we saw more of that against Fresno State as well. So I'm curious how that will translate against Missouri coming up next week, and then even into the Big 12. Is that something where KU thinks, hey, we do want to continue with that up-tempo style, because it was on display quite a bit tonight. But yeah, Emmanuel Henderson, I think, was the biggest storyline offensively for me, at least. This is kind of the game that made this is the game that I think sort of validates all of everybody salivating over his speed and his talent, in the offseason, in the summer, and into fall camp. This game sort of validates that. Now, obviously, you want to see him hopefully do it against better competition and in more important games. But yeah, to watch him just straight run by guys, really, on deep routes. They got it to him on an end around again, I think, also early in the game that was very successful. So yeah, big game from him. Daniel Highshaw was strong.
Your point on the tempo, too, is well made, and that the first touchdown, I encourage all of you guys to go back. Deshaun Hanika was calling for the ball before they even snapped it. He had his hand up and was like,
he was uncovered.
By the way, guys, over here. Nobody's over here. And so, yeah, they were able to get some good matchups because of that tempo. And I'm interested to see how they use that, because, to your point, Leipold has been very anti-tempo. He's been, one of the comparisons that I've made with Leipold before has been Bill Snyder, and not necessarily like, hey, the turnaround or whatever else, just in that Bill Snyder was not going to go up tempo. Basically, he was going to make sure that because they maybe weren't going to be as talented as some of the best teams, they were going to keep that a low possession, low play game where they had a chance to beat you. And so it's interesting to see Kansas sort of embracing that up tempo, even if it is a situational thing where it's like, hey, we just hit on a 20-yard gain. Let's go. Let's get up to the line and go. I thought the tempo part was really interesting. Because
LeSean Williams ended up not playing, he was actually dressed, which I think is a positive sign.
Went through warm-ups.
Yep. Ended up not playing. So that basically meant Daniel Highshaw got the entire first half with the first-team offense. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you still have to come away from this game feeling positive about the first-team offense, right? You had a kind of a weird 3-and-out. Then you looked unstoppable for 3 straight drives. Then you had another weird 3-and-out.
Yeah.
And then, you had the interception in the first half where you're feeling kind of deflated about how things went. But then you get the 62-yard touchdown at the start of the second half, and it's like, okay, the first-team offense was actually pretty good, I think. Like, I don't know. I think overall, I think you still have to feel positive about the first team offense.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. The other thing that I really like, Nick, is how much they're using the tight end. And you saw a couple big plays to Bowden Groen. You saw them hit Carson Brune. Leighton Cure had a catch. Deshaun Hanukkah had the touchdown. The other thing, Nick, you score your third touchdown in the first half, you go for 2.
Yes.
You wind up running like a little motion off to the side. You snap it to Carson Brune, and he ran in for a 2-point conversion. I had some people who were kind of like, man, why did they do that? There are 2 reasons that you do something like that. I think I know what you're going to say. Yeah, one of them is you want Missouri to waste time on it. You want them to go into practice, to go into film study, say, okay, they ran this. Why did it work? What are we going to have to focus on to stop it? And that's time you take away from them actually working on the stuff you're actually planning to do. The other thing, Nick, is when you have a counter off of that, where you're showing them one look so that you can kind of pull the rug out from underneath them with something else. And so I thought going for 2 was very interesting, especially in that situation.
Yeah, and I think the first point is with my takeaway too. It's like, okay, you're doing this because you're playing Missouri next, and again, any time that they spend not preparing for your quote unquote normal stuff, is time taken away from them to effectively do that. So, that was my first thought when it came to mind. I was like, okay, this is obviously something set up just to put on film to say, hey, you're going to have to spend, X amount of time looking at this versus looking at other things that we're going to be doing over the course of the game. So I'll be in the chat here talking about Bryson Canty. Bryson Canty was good today.
Yes, he was very good.
For 42 yards.
Almost brought in the one that Ballard threw high. I think he caught it, but was just out of bounds.
Yeah, and I would say this. I don't think it's surprising that Canty looks good. I think, we talked about it in camp. He'd been coming back from an injury, and that's the main reason I think why we haven't had a chance to really see him on display. But there's no question that I think when you talk about the receivers and you talk about Emmanuel Henderson, Cam Pickett, Levi Wentz, Bryson Canty's probably right in that conversation as well. I
actually liked him more than Levi Wentz, coming in. I thought he was a guy that maybe – and I like Levi Wentz, and I think Wentz has a very specific role that he can be really good at.
Wentz had a tough game today.
Yeah, but I think Canty is a guy who's a little bit more fluid, gives you a little bit more juice, is sort of that taller outside receiver guy.
Yeah, candidly, Wentz had a bit of a tough game today. He drops a touchdown in the back corner, had another drop on a screen pass. And then you have the interception
after that,
So admittedly not the best game from Levi Wentz from a receiving standpoint, but I think that's still, I think Canty is a guy that you pencil in as sort of that fourth guy as he continues to come along. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Again, you're talking about a player that didn't get here till the summer because he was graduating from Columbia, by the way.
Yes.
Columbia.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you up dealing with an injury, so you don't really get to see him much of fall camp. So I would pencil in Canty as somebody to watch the further we get into the season. And in theory, the more he's able to get comfortable and understand the playbook and all that stuff. So, really excited about that. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll transition a little bit to the defense. We didn't get to talk much about that over this first portion of the show. But we'll talk about that and more coming up next.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Baylor scored again.
This is the Pay Heat Podcast, a live edition as Kevin so rudely interrupts our return from break to say that Baylor scored again.
Hey, I am all about the Big 12 trying to make a statement against an SEC team. You guys know me. So.
We are doing this show live from David Kansas Memorial Stadium at the conclusion of Kansas defeating Wagner 46-7. thanks so much for joining us tonight. If you are live in the YouTube chat, please drop a comment, share your thoughts. And if you haven't already, you should absolutely subscribe to our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN, so you'll be notified when we go live. And by the way, we have something really special planned every day this week, starting on Monday, leading up to the Missouri game coming up next Saturday. So you want to stay tuned for that across all of our platforms, because I think we're really excited about some of the content we're going to be doing for KU and Missouri leading up to next Saturday. And we will also have boots on the ground in Columbia. We'll be there. We will be behind enemy lines in Columbia, Missouri as well on Saturday afternoon. So you'll have that to look forward to also. Thomas here in the chat asked about LeSean Williams. He was dealing with injury. He left the game against Fresno State with what seemed like a wrist injury. Lance Leipold on Monday called him questionable to doubtful. He ended up dressing, but it kind of became clear, I think, over the course of the week that, hey, probably not going to play. Ended up not playing tonight, obviously. So
if tonight was the Missouri game,
exactly.
I'm guessing he would have played. He went through warm-ups like we talked about before.
I think it was a scenario where, given the opponent and the circumstances, no need to give him unnecessary run in a game like this. So I'm assuming he should be fine. I mean, I guess I shouldn't use the term fine, but I'm assuming he should be available and will probably play against Missouri would be my guess. Bengali Kamara is another player that we didn't see tonight. Maybe just a load management type situation. As far as we're aware, he wasn't dealing with any major injury that kept him out, but that certainly hurt the linebacker depth on defense, which I think is a great transition into talking about the defense. We kind of touched on it in the first part of the show, but you give up the touchdown at the end of the first half on kind of a blown coverage play, let a guy run up the sideline, but Wagner went 3 and out about 8 times over the course of the game. Their punter was the player that saw the most playing time, it felt like, over the majority of the game. So I don't think you can be too terribly upset about the defense.
Logan Brantley had a couple nice plays. I mean, especially with John Kamara being out with the targeting call and everything, which I've had some people ask me about this. Because it was in the first half, he'll be good to go against Missouri.
Yep, exactly.
Basically, you get suspended for 2 halves because it was the first half. Because it was the first half, he'll be out, or he was out in the first half, out in the second half, and he'll be good to go against Missouri.
AJ jumping in the chat here to say that Lance Leipold said that Bengali Kamara suffered a non-contact injury in practice. So that, I guess, we'll see what becomes of that. If that becomes a bigger issue for Kansas, he's a player that certainly you want to have out there against Missouri.
Yes,
because he's one of your most athletic linebackers. And when we talk about Bro Prabila, which if you watched any of the Missouri game on Thursday night, last night, Prabila, certainly a dual threat guy that Kansas will have to deal with coming up next week. So that'll be something to monitor. But the combination of Bengali Kamara not playing, the combination of Joe Sip not playing again, then you have John Kamara with the targeting in the first half. It really kind of left you with not very many options at linebacker. So we saw a lot of Trey Lathan, a lot of Logan Brantley. Ezra Verdrell was the former walk-on was out there quite a bit as well. So
you had some stuff where you had like the first team defense out there, and you had Brantley and Verdrell as your 2 linebackers basically, because they were rotating out Trey Lathan for a little bit, and so that's something I don't think Kansas necessarily planned for heading into this season.
No, I don't think so either. But overall, I mean, I think probably the only thing the defense didn't do tonight, Kevin, was force turnovers, right? They didn't get a chance to do that. But other than that, I mean, you hold your opponent to 140 yards of offense. And again, they got basically 45 of that on one play, essentially. They punted 18 bajillion times. They had 6 first downs the whole game.
They got a lot of pressure, and the quarterback, I thought, did a really nice job of just avoiding, a couple sacks. I don't know how many sacks they wound up with. I'm bringing it up. They finished with 3 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. It definitely felt like it could have been 6 or 7 sacks where they were right there. The pressure was there, and he was able to get rid of the football. And so it was a pretty strong performance from that group. I thought the defensive tackles played really well, like you would expect them to, and that's a group that I think needs to be really on their game against Missouri.
Yeah, we got to see Dean Miller a little bit tonight as well. He was able to make a couple plays. Once again, Leroy Harris, I thought, flashed a couple of times, also coming off the edge. And as you said, the defensive tackle group was really strong again, I think, which was a very positive sign. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend too much tonight talking about Missouri. We'll have a chance to talk plenty more about Missouri over the course of the week leading up to the game. But if you did watch that game against Central Arkansas from Missouri last night, the one area where they did seem pretty vulnerable was their offensive line was pretty inconsistent, I would say. So if you get an A game from Tommy Dunn, from DJ Withers, from Blake Harrell, and Keenan Caldwell in that group, if you get an A game from those guys next Saturday, that's going to put you in a decent. That's going to put you in a decent spot, I think.
Yeah, I would 100% agree, and I think that the depth that they have, in terms of rushing the passer from the edge and things like that, could come in handy too. The fact that you not just throwing out Dean Miller and saying if Dean Miller doesn't get a pressure here, you're in trouble, but also having a guy like Leroy Harris that can get out there and run around and make plays too.
Yeah. In the secondary, truthfully, Kevin, you mentioned earlier, they weren't really tested, to be quite honest. I mean, Wagner did not really have any opportunity nor desire seemingly to throw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
So, the guys in the secondary weren't really tested, but DJ Graham was out there tonight, which was good to see.
Yeah. Had
a couple plays as well. But, yeah, I mean, I don't really know if there's too much you can take away from the secondary guys, really. They weren't really tested majority of the night.
The one deep ball that I can remember them throwing was against Mason Ellis.
Yes.
And the receiver was kind of looking up like this, and the ball hit like 5 yards behind him. So it wasn't a great throw, but also the receiver did not exactly do a great job of tracking that thing and trying to make a play on it. So that's going to be a huge test, just because we haven't really seen them get tested in that way that you want to see Jalen Todd and Austin Alexander get tested. And Missouri's receivers are terrific. Like you said, we don't want to talk all about Missouri, but that is an area that we didn't really see anything tonight that we'll be talking about probably quite a bit more in a week, positively or negatively.
Yeah, far and away the biggest storyline, I think, for the defense tonight was the linebackers and injuries, and just hopefully you can get healthy and be in a spot where you feel more comfortable going forward, right? I mean, I'm not just talking about Missouri, just even beyond that, when you get into Big 12 play. So that to me was the biggest storyline. You lose John Kamara, which is a real bummer, because John Kamara, this would have been the perfect game for him to
get a lot of snaps.
Exactly, to be able to showcase some of his athletic talent. So that was a real bummer for him. I feel bad for him. That particular play, they've changed the rules of targeting so many times. They changed the wording so many times over the course of since it's really been introduced. And essentially, it's basically if any part of your helmet is led into any part of what is considered a defenseless player's body or head, it's kind of automatic. So you feel bad for him on that one, but you hope that hopefully Bengali's Kamara, whatever he's dealing with, is not something that's serious, and hopefully you can have a chance to. Hopefully we'll have a chance to see Joe Sipp soon, because that could be a concern.
Yeah, for sure. And the sooner Sipp gets out here, the better, because Joseph Sipp, I know he's a guy that you're really high on as a potential short king type of situation. But in all seriousness, he's so instinctual, and I think to be a good linebacker in Kansas's system, like, yes, you want to have, size, speed, strength. Obviously you do. But the more important thing is being in the right place at the right time. And I think you've seen flashes of that. But that's the thing that Sipp does extraordinarily well, is play the football.
I also propose, Kevin, that we name this the Tate Nagy game.
The Tate Nagy game.
Tate Nagy was all over the place.
Let's go.
I mean, 6 punt returns. He had a kickoff return. He had a couple catches down the stretch late in the game.
Including a fourth down catch to move the chains. Yeah,
Tate Nagy was and it's so funny because I mean, you probably know this better than I do from having watched him a little bit in high school too. But he's a guy that when you look at him, it's like you're not expecting him to blow you away with the speed. And when you watch him play, it doesn't seem like he's really a speedy guy, but yet he just somehow has this way to just manipulate his body to juke around defenders and make plays. And 6 punt returns tonight. It looked like he had a chance to break a couple of them. He also had one where he went backwards like 10 yards, which was kind of bad. But he's a freshman, so I guess I'll cut him some slack. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who watched Todd Reesing play, like Tate Nagy was basically a high school Todd Reesing, where he would just run around in the backfield, for for 10 seconds and then find a wide open receiver. And so you have a guy like that. The good news is you put him at punt returner and he's somebody that can make guys miss. The bad news is he knows he can make guys miss, and so he's going to run sideline to sideline and everything. And so you actually saw some of the coaches that they put him up on the scoreboard kind of or on the TV telling him like, hey, like get going that way. We got to see Keaton Kubeka return a couple too. And so it was good to see Tate Nagy get all that action. But like you said, definitely physically unassuming, but Tate played pretty well. Yeah,
and Graydon Addison, interestingly enough, was punting tonight.
Yes.
Finn Lappin, I saw him on the sideline suited up, but it was Grayson Addison who actually did the 3 punts for Kansas. They also had a chance to utilize their freshman kicker as well. Yeah. We saw Laith Marjan hit another kick as well, which was nice to see. So all in all, I guess that whatever else you want to take away from that.
How about Zeke Marshall?
Yeah, I was going to get to that. We're going to take one more break because I'm sure this is what people actually want to hear us talk about. Shout out to Foggy Thoughts with Marshall TV2. Is certainly the other major storyline of this game was, especially on offense, getting a chance to see some of those other guys, especially at the quarterback and running back position. So we'll take one more quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a bit more about that.
What's good, everybody? It is Benny Heiss, KCSN betting analyst, and I just want to let you all know that it's okay. You can take a slow, deep breath. Inhale and breathe out. With one word, football. You feeling it? Yeah? Did you take that in? That sweet, sweet scent of grass and pigskin in? I'm ready. I hope you're ready too, because we're going to have an absolutely awesome season once again together. And especially for all of you in the state of Missouri, get your popcorn, get your phones ready, because the wait is almost over. You can taste it. It's coming, people. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming. You say, show me. I say state. Later this football season, everything that you love about playing on DraftKings Sportsbook, sides, totals, spreads, props, same-game parlays, you name it, DraftKings Sportsbook is going to elevate your already great game day experience here with KCSN. And even if you don't get in by kickoff, no sweat, besides the promos on DraftKings that they offer as well, there's live in-game betting, payouts, faster than Xavier Worthy hauling down a bomb from 15 on the sidelines, all right from the comfort of your phone, wherever, whenever. You'll be betting with a top-rated sportsbook that is safe, secure, and trusted by millions of Americans across the country. Now, here's what you do. Follow your guy. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Be sure to use code KCSN as you get ready for sports betting to launch here in the state of Missouri. You're going to be the first in line for exclusive promos, can't miss offers, much, much more. It's code KCSN. That is KCSN in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. Subject to regulatory licensing requirements.
This is the Paid Podcast, a live edition of the show on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN from David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium. I'm Nick Springer. I'm here with Kevin Flaherty. We're brought to you by Emprise Bank. Once again, if you haven't already, please subscribe. If you're an audio listener, you can subscribe there, of course, on Apple and Spotify. But I would highly encourage you to subscribe on our YouTube channel as well at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN for some great video content. And so you can come hang out with tons of other great KU fans during our live shows, as we'll be live post-game after every KU football game this season. And that includes next week against Missouri. We're going to be live from Columbia. We'll have boots on the ground. We will be parachuting in behind enemy lines in Columbia. So
we may be shooting that show from a stairwell.
Yeah, that one, we'll see how that works out. We'll see where the people of Missouri decide to put us for that show. But hopefully we can find a safe, quiet place to do the show next week. But maybe just that, that alone maybe why you should be tuning in, just to see where the hell we are when we do this show.
That's true.
Just to do the show. So yeah, please subscribe if you haven't already on YouTube at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN. Okay, so right before we took that last break, we had some people in here, Foggy Thoughts, mentioning about Isaiah Marshall. Let's talk about it, Kevin. We talked about the first team offense. They had a couple bad drives, but overall looked really good. Then you go into halftime after the interception from Jalen Daniels. You're like, okay, maybe we'd like to see them for one more drive. Sure enough, they come back out and hit the 62-yard touchdown pass by Emmanuel Henderson. And then at that point, it's like, okay, now we're good. Now we can see the rest of what KU has to offer offensively. And you bring in Cole Ballard, and Cole Ballard kind of did what Cole Ballard does, truthfully, which is lower the shoulder, absolutely truck stick fools, and show off his running ability. Passing-wise, truthfully, didn't look that great. I mean, he finishes 2 of 6 for 38 yards.
Did have the really nice read and ball to Canty, along the sideline. Great route by Canty on that one too.
Yeah. By the way, during the break, Adam, we were talking about this. Adam Vaughn says the rest of the Big 12 not showing up this week. During the break, Kevin was lamenting the fact that Baylor may actually be bad.
Yes.
Care to comment?
I was actually very, very disappointed with that. I am rooting for Baylor to show up a little bit better against Auburn than the Bears currently are.
Yeah. So Cole Ballard, I mean, again, he just kind of did what I expected him to do, I guess, which is run the ball and also not have really a chance to pass that much. And I was also something that I was also curious about was, okay, let's say this scenario played out where, you're up by 30 at that point, at 36-7, and you bring in your backups. Is it going to be, let's bring in the backups and run HB dive 100 times and not really do anything? Or is it, let's bring in the backups and actually show some stuff? With Cole Ballard, they did show a little bit, but obviously there was a lot of running the ball as well. And the guy that actually popped to me the most, Kevin, that I was most impressed with was Harry Stewart. Harry Stewart ends the game with 6 carries for 33 yards. I thought he showed great burst, great speed. He ends up scoring the touchdown as well. Johnny Thompson, I thought, had a good game as well, but he
Justin Thurman for me.
Yeah.
Justin Thurman. I'm a little bit bitter about that 58-yard run.
How about John Kelly getting the last carry?
Yeah, John Kelly got the last carry. John Kelly's interesting because he's got a really good running back frame, and he's got great track speed. And so I think the running back skills are going to need to come along. As with any young player, they need to get with sleeve, right, and become sort of a college running back. But Kelly's a guy that, I think you could sort of buy low, sell high on type of deal.
Yeah, Harry Stewart really popped for me. Johnny Thompson had that fumble at the goal line, unfortunately, but Stewart I thought was good. And then, of course, Isaiah Marshall gets into the game and does what Isaiah Marshall does too as well with his running ability. He had that bad snap that he was able to turn into a gain actually at one point where he couldn't secure the snap, but what were your takeaways from what we saw from Isaiah Marshall?
I remember, I'm not saying he's Todd Reesing, but I remember when Todd Reesing came in against Colorado in 2006, and it was the first time he had ever played. People were familiar with him from a recruiting standpoint, and then he came into a game actually in that case that was in doubt, whereas this one wasn't. But when you saw that he was coming in with so much time left in the fourth quarter, you could feel the crowd's breath kind of catch a little bit, right? And that part was kind of similar, and that it was okay, let's see what this guy has. And it's interesting, Nick, because next year Kansas is going to have a flat-out race for the quarterback position, and I don't think the Jayhawks are going to go into the portal at this point. And so I think it's going to be the 3 guys that they currently have in that spot, where you have Cole Ballard, who has started previously, has experience, has time running the offense. You have Zeke Marshall, and then the guy that I'm really high on, as you know, is David McComb. I think McComb has all kinds of ability. But when you're handicapping that race, I think you look at, McComb's the best passer, Ballard has the most experience. But Nick, if Zeke Marshall wins this job, it's going to be because of stuff that we saw tonight, where he is a gamer, and he's not always going to come off at practice as good maybe as the other guys. Because remember, at practice, they're in non-contact jerseys. You aren't getting to see the full use of his legs and everything else. But there are some guys that just the lights turn on and they become special. And Zeke was that guy in high school, leading his high school to a state title and over some really talented guys, including Bryce Underwood.
I was going to say, he beats the number 1 overall recruit in the state title game in Michigan, who, by the way, is going to be starting as a true freshman from Michigan tomorrow.
Yeah. And so that's the thing that I think when we're handicapping this race, as we will be all off season, that's kind of the thing that makes me, rub my chin a little bit for Zeke Marshall, is just you put that guy in competitive game situations and he comes through, and there's just something kind of special about the guy. You saw the way he ran. Nick, he threw the ball pretty well today too.
Yep. Had a couple decent passes as well, and yeah, I mean, I think kind of what you're hitting on is there's various terms for it, but people may call it like the it factor,
Yes.
right? Like, do you have it? You know? And I think when you look at Isaiah Marshall, we saw a little bit of a glimpse of that, and I think you would agree he's definitely a guy that has that it factor as well.
Yeah.
But Cole Ballard, to his credit, is also a very, very competitive player and has that experience. And we know that Lance Leipold trusts, more experienced players. So,
Sure.
It would take Isaiah Marshall really impressing, I think, to have a chance at that job, at least to start the season. It's kind of where I'm at right now on August 29th, 2025, when we have basically an entire calendar year before we have to decide. But
this is kind of a funny discussion, coming on the fact that we literally just watched a game that we're breaking down. But I also think it's a situation, Nick, that even if Zeke doesn't win the job immediately, it could be the sort of thing where, hey, if somebody struggles, if God forbid somebody gets hurt and Zeke comes in, he may wrestle that job away and never give it back.
Well,
he has that bit of special to him.
Well, and I mean, think about the reason that Cole Ballard got to play when he did. It was because of injuries, right? I mean,
sure.
The truth be told, Zeke Marshall is 1 or 2 plays away from being the guy this year, like Cole Ballard was as a true freshman, or even David McCollum, right? I mean, he's 3 plays away from being. So you never know, obviously, from an injury standpoint.
But back to present day, because he was asking about QB2. I think what I would really like to see is we saw with Kotelnicki there being some 2 quarterback packages where you were able to take advantage of the defense having to account for both Jason Bean and Jalen Daniels. I would love it if Kansas rolled out some stuff in the next few weeks that had both Jalen and Zeke on the field, because I think you could do some really fun things with that.
Yeah, because, I mean, you're talking about 2 guys with very unique skill sets that can complement each other, that can create a lot of confusion for the defense, right? I mean, we saw Zeke Marshall running some option plays, right, and sort of trying to and reading the defense and whatnot. So, yeah, that could be something that maybe they sprinkle in. I mean, I don't know. It would be an interesting package, I think, to see. Obviously, from what we've seen in the first 2 games, I think it's clear that Jim Zebrowski, is the mad scientist that we kind of knew he was, where he's going to drop some stuff. We saw today there was a play where it was kind of a fake speed option, and then there was a corner route back the other way, right?
Yeah.
We saw a play where Bowden Grown leaked out, on a similar situation where he just became a crosser going the opposite direction. So, yeah, I mean, I think if it's a feasible play, I'm guessing Jim Zebrowski has thought about it, or whatever it may be. Or if it's a feasible package, I guess he's the type of guy that I think has already dreamed about those types of things.
Well, and I think Lubick too. They make such a fascinating pairing because Lubick comes off very deadpan and very serious, but I think in his heart of hearts he's very similar, and so I'm not sure that either one of those guys is sort of putting the governor on this thing, right? I think both of them are kind of like, let's see how fast this car can go, and so I really like that pairing. I think in addition to the offense is being pretty effective, which, I mean, you put up 631 yards. The offense is being pretty effective. But I think in addition to that, Nick, it helps the players because it's fun. It helps in recruiting because it's fun. Fans love it because it's fun. And so I think when you have that creativity and all the different things that you're doing, it's not just that you're being really good. I think it's also something that's very attractive for a lot of people as well.
Couple of the notes from the game here. We talked about penalties last week against Fresno State. The first team offense really cut down on those quite a bit, which was good to see. Kansas was just 4 of 10 on third downs, which was not great. The first team offense had a couple opportunities on third down that they couldn't convert. So that's something to maybe keep an eye on.
I think the first team offense was 2 for 4 when Jalen was out there. So right at about 50%.
Yeah. Wagner, Kevin had 28 carries for 53 yards. They netted less than 2 yards per carry.
You will take that every day of the week, and you will take all of the passing that does not involve the 45-yard play. You will take that as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think from the defensive perspective, the only thing maybe you didn't do was you didn't force any turnovers.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're not going to force turnovers, but you're going to force a team to go 3 and out 8 times over the course of a game, you take that. Certainly, you take that. Any other final thoughts here to wind down the show here, Kevin, from tonight's game?
No, I think it was a good game in terms of we always talk about you want to win and also have some things that the coaches can go back and say, hey, you need to do this better. But also, I thought, Nick, they did some things better this week. And granted, the competition changed, but some things that maybe they struggled with a little bit against Fresno State, they did better this week. I think Daniel Highshaw really settled in well, which was nice to see. And so some of those things that you were really hoping would get, I don't want to say corrected, but improved from the Fresno State game, I thought did come off pretty well.
Yeah, Highshaw finished with 14 carries for 89 yards. He had a 20-yard run in there,
Yep.
and he looked like he was, doing what he does, which is push the pile forward, be a menace to tackle, right?
He jumped a guy at one point.
Yeah, a strong game from him. Yeah, I think offensively, with Highshaw, but Emmanuel Henderson jumps out, right? And obviously Jalen Daniels, again, had a really strong game as well. Defensively, we talked about the injuries at linebacker. That's something to monitor. Hopefully that doesn't hurt their depth too much heading into Missouri week.
Every single guy who ran the ball averaged at least 4 yards a carry, and everybody except Johnny Thompson averaged 5.5 yards per carry or better.
Yeah.
So, it was a good game running the ball as well.
Yeah, I thought tonight – I mentioned Harry Stewart earlier, but I thought, for me at least, tonight kind of cemented that Harry Stewart is running back 3, in my opinion. He was set back by an injury for most of spring and summer, and I think into camp as well. But to me, he's running back 3. I think he showed a little bit more tonight. And obviously, we'll see what the status of LeSean Williams is, because if LeSean Williams is unavailable, then Harry Stewart becomes your running back 2 at that point. So that's something that I personally kind of took away from the game. But yeah, beyond that, kind of circling back to the start of the show, it was one of the games of all time, especially in the second half, where it became pretty clear that both teams were pretty content to just run the ball and kill the clock and get out of Dodge in this one. But yeah, Kansas wins 46-7. I just want to put on the record, by the way, that my score prediction was 49-6.
Yes,
that's pretty damn close, I would say,
for sure.
On that one. If you were somebody who bet on Kansas minus 46.5, you lost. Sorry.
But both of us said on the show you should not do that, by the way.
True.
So.
Yeah, and that is not betting advice, by the way.
Yeah.
That is not betting advice. But if you are somebody who partakes in that as well. So, like I said earlier in the show, we're planning on putting together some really, really fun content coming up this week for the KU Missouri rivalry. Kansas and Missouri, of course, renewing that rivalry on Saturday. So you'll absolutely want to stay tuned on all of our platforms on YouTube. If you're an audio listener on our audio platforms, you can subscribe to those channels, leave a 5-star rating and review. Thank you so much, everybody that commented live here tonight on the show as well. Really appreciate all of you that have tuned in. Look, it is 10:34 p.m. on a Friday night, and we've got some real sickos still watching us here on the show.
So in the best kind of way, guys. In the best kind of way. Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way.
Yeah, so thank you so much to those of you that are tuned in tonight. Really appreciate the support. And again, I'm very, very excited about what we have planned for this week to sort of maybe jog your memory a little bit about why the Kansas-Missouri rivalry is so important, and maybe why there is such a strong vitriol there. You might get a little bit of a reminder of some of the past matchups between KU and Missouri and why it's so important in this rivalry. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. Looking forward to it. We're going to have some conversations with some great KU legends about KU and Missouri. And, of course, we'll be previewing KU and Missouri. And then, like I said earlier as well, we will be in Columbia on Saturday afternoon for KU and Missouri. And we will be live after the show, assuming we do not get sabotaged by any Missouri people. We anticipate being live immediately following the conclusion of KU and Missouri from Columbia. But until the next time, you got anything else you want to add here, Kevin?
No. Stay subscribed. Stay tuned to our channel, because you guys will want to watch the stuff that we have in store for you this week.
Absolutely. But until next time, he's Kevin Flaherty. I'm Nick Springer. We'll talk to you again soon. See ya.